Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. If you're a marketer, you know that marketing changes every day, from the tools and technology to best practices and techniques, to consumer behavior and the socio-economic environment. To be successful, it's imperative that we stay curious, never stop learning, stay up with the changes, and try out the new things as they come along. And that brings us to our guest today. Korena Keys is the founder and CEO of KeyMedia Solutions, a digital media agency and trusted marketing partner to clients around the U.S. Korena is also an author, having recently released her book, Welfare to CEO. I've known Korena for several years, and she has always impressed me with her forward-thinking approach to her business. Back over 10 years ago, Korena jumped into the programmatic media buying world before very many people even knew what it was by joining the trade desk. She brought on the Agency Management Institute as consultants because she knew she needed help understanding the business side of the agency world. And she started learning about and trying AI, artificial intelligence, years ago when it was just starting to impact marketing. Korena is a savvy businesswoman and digital marketing expert, and she shares some great insights on digital media, writing a book, and running a successful business. Welcome to Outdrive, Korena.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Same here. We've got so much to talk about. We've known each other for several years. We're in a peer group of advertising agencies from around the country.
Yeah.
You're a digital media and marketing expert. That carries a lot of weight in this circle. You've run a successful advertising agency for many years, and you have a unique business model, which I want to talk about. You launched a book last year. You're an author.
Yeah, because there's just, nothing else going on.
You own a building that you just renovated, and I know how important your family is, and we hadn't even talked about that, but you live in the upper Midwest. That's a part of rural America. So, gosh, we could go down so many different roads, and we will. But let's start by having you tell our audience who you are.
Yeah, my name's Korena. I am home base in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Moved back here when I was in high school, graduated, and have just made it home. And mostly because my parents, my siblings, my kids are all right here and they're close by. And as tempting as it is to fly south and to go someplace a little bit warmer, leaving them behind is not an option. So I have been in this market for my full career. Started in media strategy and media buying, evolving specifically into digital marketing as that became more prevalent and really started to emerge and evolve and change over the years. And I say that I started doing this in 91, so a lot has changed over the years as it relates to that media and marketing strategy, placements, opportunities, traditional versus the new stuff and the digital and continuing evolution. In 2011, I left the full service agency realm and started KeyMedia Solutions, really just to focus on online advertising and marketing and help more of those like Main Street businesses compete on a level playing field with the enterprise level organizations when it comes to online presence, visibility, marketing, and advertising.
So you mentioned getting started in 1991, and everything has changed since 1991. Thinking back to that when we were going, but we were still kind of trying to figure things out, and we were so traditional. Everything was traditional. Everything moved slow. It was harder.
You had to fax, insertion orders, and you had to FedEx tapes to TV stations and prints out to the different publishers. Crazy.
It is. And I can't imagine a young person that's grown up with all this, that started maybe at a firm like ours. They don't have the appreciation. I mean, they have appreciation for the job and the position and the opportunity, all that. But to see where it all started or where we started and then where it is today is amazing.
Yes. It's hard to believe it's been the same lifetime.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of like a different life. But one of the things that I always like to ask a marketer is when did you first develop an interest in it? And why do you think it happened?
Yeah, so for me, I had just this clear epiphany. I went to college as an undecided student, had no idea what I wanted to do or what was even out there. And my sophomore J term, I needed a class. So I took a media ethics class. I don't know how I ended up on that, other than it's like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I tell you, I fell in love. I absolutely, within the first week of that class, I'm like, this is my calling. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And before that 3 week course was over, I had a job at the local TV station and changed my major, changed my entire course schedule for the next semester, and just jumped in headfirst. And I haven't looked back since.
So I know as an agency owner, you've done everything at the agency, I recognize. Except for me, I've never done graphic design. They won't let me do that. But I have good taste. I just don't have the skill set to do it. But I know you've done everything, but probably mostly has been on the strategy and account side, right? So as you think about starting or being inspired by an ethics class, is there one or two things from that ethics class that sticks with you today?
That class was really all about news and ethics in the news, which is why I ended up at a TV station and worked in every department in that TV station except promotions in my 5 year term there. But it really, to me, is that we have the ability to influence people and to influence thoughts and beliefs and actions every single day in what we're doing and how we're doing it. And being able to do it to where, yeah, I feel really good about who I am because, and I can sleep really well at night because I know I'm on the right side of that ethical line. And especially now with all the AI conversations and the conversations about ethical use of AI, it's really kind of surging again. There's just so many aspects of this question. What I think we have as really good marketers, we have an ethical right to protect the consumers and to make sure when we're working on developing messages, when we're looking at strategies, when we're looking at the things that we're doing it in a way that upholds the ethics of our industry versus violating some of those ethics and some of those basic human rights. But we've also seen this whole change in news ethics where it used to be every source needed to be cited and you needed to double verify every fact and information, and you do not use slanderous headlines and you did not use these attention grabbing stories within the news that were sensationalized just to get ratings. And that has completely evolved with the advent of cable news that was all about sensation and ratings and keeping people engaged 24/7 and having to come up with new stories in order to fill all these time slots. And we've seen more of the mainstream news buy into that to be able to compete. And so, I mean, that has changed so dramatically in the last 30, 40 years. It's just crazy. Like, news is now one of the least trusted sources, news networks, where they used to be the most trusted.
You're absolutely right. As you've answered this question, and I'm just sitting here processing, taking in what you're saying. First, we have a huge responsibility, as you said, to protect the consumer. And you have to have a much greater appreciation for that today than you did even when you were taking that class. Because it got your attention, it got you thinking about it. But now, today, you recognize being in the business how big a deal that really is.
Yes, without a doubt.
And then, your example of how the mainstream news has now become sensational for ratings, to sell advertising, or for whatever reason, it's a little discouraging to me. It's a little frustrating to me because I don't want to be entertained with the news. I want to get the news. I want to get the Walter Cronkite version of the news. And I don't even know where you go to find that today, or if you can.
For me, it's just about looking at multiple different sources and then being able to draw my own conclusions. We're a busy society, and most people don't have time to do that. And therefore, we tend to buy into these beliefs that for that little piece that we expose ourselves to.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. But you're right. We each kind of have our own personal responsibility to process all the information that is exposed to us and draw our own conclusions, which means that what you come up with and what I come up with, because we're two different people, could be entirely different, even though we may have the same views and philosophies.
Well, and that even brings it back to like social media and streaming music. We are no longer exposed to different ideas, beliefs, philosophies, lifestyles, genres, information, conversations, because we're so fine-tuned and honed in on what we like. We always go to the same radio station on Pandora or Spotify. We tune into the same news channel. We read the same feed in our social media profiles. And we're no longer getting exposed to different ideas or thinking or philosophies or events that are outside of the algorithm that tells us what we already like. And it tends to like so ingrain in us that our personal beliefs are the only beliefs out there that we're almost creating the society of small-mindedness.
It's an interesting perspective. It really is. It's very insightful because you're absolutely right. And now I'm sitting here thinking, geez, I need to watch some of those other things to hear what they have to say, even though I may not buy into it and even though it may not be consistent with my thinking, but I need that to have a well-rounded view.
And we all do. We're getting very philosophical, very deep here.
Yes, we are. Let's reel that in. Let's go to KeyMedia. Let's tell our audience who KeyMedia is.
Yeah, so we're a digital media firm and we really focus on helping businesses, either internal marketing teams or ad agencies, better integrate and utilize the latest online advertising technology to drive results. And so that can be programmatic tools, it can be search optimization or search marketing tools, it can be social media marketing, email marketing. It's really about working with the individual businesses to discover like what are your major challenges? What are you trying to overcome? What are those business outcomes need to be? And how can we use the technology today to deliver on those outcomes?
Do you think your business model is what makes you unique, or are there other things that are maybe even more important than that?
I don't know if it's necessarily the business model because I think you could throw dice and find 15 different digital marketing firms out there. I think our approach is what makes us unique. We don't cookie cutter anything. Everything we do is very custom to that individual brand, that product, that service. And the challenges that they're trying to overcome or the goals that they're trying to achieve. But then also our internal processes are very different because it's really for me, even though we're a digital marketing firm and we could live behind a screen and never actually have a conversation with end user, client, or business, we're very much in the people business first. And it's all about the relationships and being that true partner to understand what's happening within the business, not just as it relates to what we do, but how what we do impacts every aspect of what's happening within the organization. And so we're very committed to making sure that we have face-to-face conversations and that we're meeting in person and we're understanding not just, okay, you want to do a PPC campaign, great, let's execute on that. We drove this many clicks and leads and whatever. But it's really more about having the conversations of if we increased your volume of demand by X, do you have the fulfillment process in place? Do you have access to the inventory? Can you do all these other things to deliver on this so you have a really good user experience and that it grows your business versus tends to cause additional complications down the road? So we ask questions early on of businesses that we're working with that they've typically never been asked before.
Really more of a marketing partner because you're looking at product and you're looking at distribution and how that happens, and might even get involved in the pricing aspect of where's the optimum price to generate the optimum results. One of the great things I think today about being a marketer is you have so many tools available to you to accomplish your goals. We take a similar approach in our agency where everything is custom. You, as a client, have specific challenges or opportunities that nobody else has. So let's figure out what your objectives are, what strategies you're going to put into place, and then how you're going to execute those strategies. Are there certain things that you see across the board right now that are working better than anything else?
I think overall, one of the trends that we're seeing is how we can use data to connect all the dots to really create this comprehensive omni-channel approach to marketing versus the silos. And we talk about the old days. We used to have silos. Like, okay, this is the print campaign, this is the television campaign, this is the radio campaign. And they didn't really mix or mingle. And we definitely didn't evaluate performance of a campaign based on all of the collective data. We now have the ability and the technology to really compile and pull all that data and cross-tabulate and see how one thing impacts the another and leads down through a process through that buyer journey from that very first introduction and somebody going from a completely unknown to a brand to all the way down to becoming a loyal buyer and customer of that brand. And so we've got all the data to be able to connect it. So the more that we can connect data, either through reporting of what's happening within the campaign, being able to use universal pixels so that our PPC campaign is connected to the display campaign, and we can see how one piece impacts the other, all the way down to through purchases and through CRMs and through that whole buyer experience and being able to look at everything. The more that we can connect these data points, the better our outcomes are going to be. We're going to have higher conversion rates. We're going to have lower cost per acquisition rates anytime we can start connecting some of these pieces together.
It's amazing how powerful integration is. If you step back and you think about it, it's hard to understand why it wasn't always done that way. Maybe it was the evolution of the advertising agencies prompting that. There's PR firms and ad agencies, and then, of course, digital marketing agencies and sales promotion agencies. And many times clients, and even today, clients continue to have multiple relationships with agencies, when in my mind, a full service integrated agency has so much more to offer.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest roles that we can talk about within an agency anymore is that data analysis piece. Like, who do we have on our staff that has the ability to decipher the data and not just report on it or copy it or recite numbers, but really understand the kind of how that data is working together and finding those trends and those insights and those actionable moments.
Yeah, that's the key right there. What are you going to do? And what are you going to do with that data to move the needle? Many of the things that you've described there as a part of being ahead of the curve in terms of, as an agency owner, as agency people, we have to stay up with what's going on. I mean, if not, we're going to get left behind, and we can't afford to do that. So what are some of the ways that you and your agency stay up with new trends and new techniques and best practices and all that?
Yeah. And I think one of those is one that you already touched on. It's that agency group that we're part of, that peer group, and just being connected to other people that are also on the front lines and understanding what are the challenges that you're hearing from your clients. What are some trends that you're recognizing as things that are changing within our industry? And that really is a very valuable piece of it because it basically takes me as one person and it multiplies me times multiple and allows us more ability to see what's happening and to recognize those trends a little bit faster. Participating in different conferences and events and making sure that we're constantly trying to learn and grow. And one of those for us has been the Marketing AI Institute and the MyCon conference that they do every year. And that has been really valuable for us to stay ahead of like what's coming at us next and what do we need to learn to start to prepare, not just for our own company, but for our clients. so that they can stay ahead of that. We're constantly reading newsletters, listening to podcasts, as much information as we can gather, and we can do. And then one of the things that we're actually starting internally this year is just a regular lunch and learn, and being able to allow everybody in the company to share, like, this is something that I read that was really interesting, or this is something that I've been playing around with or testing or trying to learn more about, and then sharing that information across the whole organization so that we're all learning with each other and encouraging that activity.
Those are a lot of great ideas. So, folks, hope you got all those written down because our industry changes every day. There's always something new. So, those are a lot of great ways to stay up with it. You mentioned challenges and you mentioned agency challenges or client challenges, but I know you have some in your agency as well. Plus, you're a building owner, you're an author. What are some of the challenges that you face in your business?
I think we all face the number one of time. How do we allocate our own internal time resources to do everything that we need to do on a daily basis? And I'm not going to use the word balance because I don't think balance exists. There's like no such thing as balance in our world. But how do we blend everything together in a way so that it's still very fulfilling and we're still rewarded and feeling like we have the time with our family and with our kids and our parents, and to be able to step back and take care of ourselves and to recoup and do the rest that we need, in addition to taking care of our teams and taking care of our clients. And also, kind of like you as the visionary of the organization, like, our role is to think about what happens after what happens next. And so, how do we manage the day to day and being pulled back into what's happening today and handling things that are moving forward while still, say, keeping somewhat of a focus on what do we need to know about and be prepared for in the next 2 years or 3 years? And that's probably the biggest challenge.
Those are all right on target. And for me, the biggest benefit is having that operations piece in place where I don't have to do it anymore, which gives you maybe a little bit of time to just think, which is hard. It's hard to transition from a task driven day to day work life to a sit back and think about the what happens next after what happens next.
Yeah. And that was last year. In full transparency, 23 was a very, very rocky year for the company. And honestly, a few years of turbulence, like coming out of COVID, and then things took off and went super crazy. And then it's just been a rocky several years for, I think, most agencies. But it forced me to really make some really, really hard decisions in early 2024. And coming in and completely restructuring the organization, we had to do some layoffs. We had to completely refocus what we were doing, how we were doing it. And I really had to step back into that day-to-day realm pretty heavily for much of 2024. And so having to do that while still trying to think about and keep the company and everybody else focused on where we're going and how we're going to get to this larger end goal was probably one of the more challenging years that I've had, for sure.
The challenging life of an agency owner, right?
It never ends.
It never ends. It's just a different challenge.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, you mentioned AI, and we don't talk about AI in every episode, but we almost do in every episode. But it always impressed me with you, Korena, because I always saw you as an early adopter of AI. I know I went to conferences before COVID, so it was a year or two before COVID, and you had already been there. You were already involved. You had seen the potential. How are you using it today?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I always feel like we could be doing more. We could be doing better. Like, I feel like as much as we are doing, we're still not as advanced as where we should be. But part of the restructure that we did last year is really tried to automate as much as we possibly can. Where can we automate? Where can we find efficiencies? Where can we reduce redundancies? Where can we eliminate double entry of data or any sort of unnecessary task? And so it actually started a few years before. In 2022, we just did a really overall, like really deep study of every team member and what are your daily activities? What are the things that you're doing on a regular basis? Where are frustration points? Where are we finding gaps? Where are we having errors and issues? And how can we streamline and start to eliminate one of these? And one of the biggest ones that we found was in our billing department, in our finance department. And so in 23, we completely restructured our entire billing and finance department. And we upgraded our bookkeeping software to where it would start to connect with other tools that we were using for client information and for billing, and started automating information back and forth so we didn't have to double enter invoices, and it automatically sent invoices out of the system versus having to download them and save them and then attach them to an email and send them later. And by doing a lot of these things and finding these efficiencies and upgrading the software, we were able to eliminate almost 1.5 positions within our finance department, which wasn't the initial goal. But when we needed to completely restructure, it definitely helped that we were able to streamline and find these efficiencies. But it also has become like the most efficient function really within our organization, where we've eliminated a lot of duplicate entry. And what used to take us 5 to 7 days to do all of the billing and reporting, we've gotten down to about 4 hours.
That all sounds so familiar because we went through the same thing around the same time as I reflect back upon it and incorporated the project management component into all that because it does integrate and it's all one, right? Even though there are separate things to accomplish. And that was painful. I mean, we'd been using a system that we had used for 30 years and always thought it worked great. But to your point, it was 4 or 5 days going through the billing process and figuring out everything. And now it's like push the button, look it over, make sure it's right, and send it out the door. So if we could just do that with every process we had, we'd be much better shape.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, there's always, we do use AI in campaign optimizations and campaign analysis and audience targeting parameters and all the things that everybody's doing. We use a lot of chat GPT in ideation, and I use it for spell checking. It's a great spell checking grammar tool.
Yeah, there's so many uses for it. Early on, we started the conversation with ethics. And so there's the whole ethics part of AI. And we've addressed that internally with how you use it, what you're going to use it for, what you're not going to use it for, where you're going to gather information. And then we've been transparent and disclosed that with our clients so that they understand it. But again, I'm not sure it's enough.
It's probably never going to be enough. That's the challenge, right? There's always going to be more. There's always going to be something else that's evolving. There's always going to be the next thing that we need to be looking at and testing and implementing. And one of the things that they say at MyCon, there's going to be 3 types of businesses in the future. There's going to be AI emergent, there's going to be AI adaptive, and there's going to be non-existent. And we laugh when they say that, but I really do believe that we're getting to a point where if businesses are not starting to test and implement and find efficiencies using AI, they will not be able to move fast enough or compete at a price to where they're going to be able to stay in business.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's amazing to me just in using the software on a daily basis, tools, apps that we use in our business, how just one day, all of a sudden you got an AI tool that's helping you out that you didn't even know was there before, or you didn't recognize it. And they're pretty darn intuitive. And it's amazing and scary all in one.
And it's really amazing once you discover how efficient it can be that you took so long to start using it. And then you're like, I'm never going back.
As we've been talking, I had this thought that popped into my mind. It's an idea. Actually, no bad idea, right? Because you and I have talked about writing a book before, and we'll talk about your book here in just a second. But I'm sitting here thinking, could AI help me write my book? And I'm thinking, absolutely it can, but we'll see if that ever happens. But you made it happen. Congratulations. I think that's a pretty monumental task. I know that. I'm impressed by that. Tell us about your book, Welfare to CEO.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where I knew for a long time I needed to write a book and just in credibility for the business, personal branding purposes. Like we all know that at some point we should probably do it. It took me a long time to come to terms that the book that I should write is not about the business or the profession or digital marketing or my professional expertise, but really my own personal story. And partly because I didn't think my story was unique. I didn't think it was special, and I didn't really feel like it was something that other people would even find interesting. And through a lot of prodding and a lot of encouragement and a lot of support from friends and family, ended up kind of going that route. So from welfare to CEO is a single mom's journey in entrepreneurship. It's my story from when I started out as a teen mom living on welfare, uncertain if I was even going to go to college, and then working my way through college and then through my career to the point at I was 39 when I actually started my first business and stepped into that entrepreneurship world. And so I went from basically being dependent on welfare and other people to pay my bills and buy my groceries and support my family to now I am the CEO and the owner, and I am now supporting multiple families through career opportunities and livelihoods.
Which is a big responsibility as well.
Yes. And not one I take lightly.
Yeah, it's one of those, I don't think about it. I just do it, right? I think you have to, as a business owner with employees and demands, not from the employees, but demands on your time, demands from facilities. I mean, there's so many things that a business owner gets involved in. If you think about all that responsibility, you might end up in the corner sucking your thumb.
Rocking yourself to sleep at night. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Well, again, congratulations to you. I'm assuming they can find Welfare to CEO wherever they buy their favorite books.
Yes, it is pretty much online everywhere. It's on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes& and Noble. You can get it at Target.com.
And I bet if they bought one and they sent it to you, you would even sign it and send it back, wouldn't you?
If somebody wants one, they can just email me and I would sign them and send them a book. Absolutely.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah, 100%.
Hope you don't get like 1,000 requests
It
today.
may take a while to fulfill it, but I'll get it done.
As I mentioned, been thinking about writing a book sometime. Have talked to a couple of our other peers who have done the same thing that you have. What would you say to me if you knew I was thinking about writing a book?
Just start. Just start doing it. I hired a publisher because I knew that I needed somebody to push me along and keep me accountable. I don't know if you're familiar with Working Genius or all those things. Like, I'm an ideator and I have great discernment, but I am terrible at tenacity. Like, it gets to the end of the project and I would rather just absolutely forget it and move on to the next fun, exciting thing. So I knew I needed a publisher to help keep me focused and keep me accountable and to get it through that finish line. But by the time I even reached the publisher, I had a pretty good outline. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how the book would flow together. I had a pretty good sense of what the message, overall messaging was going to be in the book and who I wanted it to be really applicable to.
So if you don't use a publisher, how do you do it? Are there different processes, different ways to go about it?
Start with your outline. Just like you would write an essay when you were in college, right? Your thesis. Start with your outline, get your big idea points down, and then build in your stories, 2 to 3 stories for each one of those ideas, and just start to build out your chapters based on your outline and go through. And the big thing throughout is editing for tone, editing for consistency, editing for grammar. Also not my strong suit, but just making sure then going through it and it all just kind of flows together.
Yeah, I can see that editing really for voice and consistency being so critical. And then to make sure that the story actually does flow from start to finish. How long did it take you to write your book?
It took 3 years.
That's awesome. That's a commitment.
It was, I mean, there was a little bit of stuff happening in and around that. In addition to writing the book, I got engaged and got married, and my son got married, and there's a lot that happened in and throughout. But I have a lot of respect for anybody that writes a book. It is a much bigger undertaking than I was even prepared for.
I'm sure that it is. Well, I guess one other question of what would you tell somebody? What would you tell somebody that was thinking about getting into marketing as a career?
I love it. I still get so excited to go to work every single day. And we're talking, since 91, I have been in this. But I love the rapidly changing environment. I love how we're challenged to learn something new every single day. I love overcoming challenges and problem solving. For me, there's just a new challenge every single day that I get excited about. If that is not your forte, it might not be the right industry for you. But over and above all, I think anybody that's really looking to get into this, we've kind of touched on that data analysis, being able to really break down data, because AI is going to allow us to do the media buying, the media placement, the kind of some of the high level analysis of what's happening within campaigns. We need to be able to, one, use the tools. Like, we need to know how to use the tools and to run the tools and to train the tools to get the best outcomes, but also then analyze those outcomes in order to find those actionable insights and those next steps and those things that we can apply that's going to make it even better.
Next few years are going to be interesting, but I have been seeing a lot of data that suggests that a career in digital marketing going forward is going to be high demand. Even though there's the AI theory that says it's going to replace all marketers, I don't see that happening. I think for now, people control the machinery.
Well, and we still like creative thinking and concepting and strategy and application. Like, it can't do that yet as well as we can do those things. We still have to be a part of it. Like I said, to teach the AI, to be able to analyze it, to guide it, to get the best outcomes.
Yeah, it's a tool that we're going to use.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I think you told me one time that you started your business on your kitchen table in a really small town.
I did.
You live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota today. And I think when I look at all of that, I see rural America. Yeah, Sioux Falls is a great city. It's beautiful. But I know it's a very outdoors city, which I think is a big part of rural America. When I say those words, rural America, what does that mean to you?
For me, it's just home. I'm so proud of where I'm from and my upbringing. Grew up, small town South Dakota, small town Minnesota, lived actually in Missouri for a very short amount of time. And it was that small town of 700 and 1,100 square foot story and a half house that I raised my kids in. And the fact that they could just go and run around to the neighborhood and ride their bike to the pool, and they knew when the whistle blew to come home. I mean, like, that's just, to me, it's quality of life and it's just home. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Me neither. Korena, I've enjoyed visiting with you. Always do. We have great conversations. What else would you like to share with our audience today that you think they might find interesting or maybe even inspiring?
Just stay curious. Stay curious about the world we're in, what's happening around us, what's happening not just in our businesses, but in our neighborhoods and our communities, and step into it a little bit.
Great advice. Thanks again for being with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Cliff.
Hey, folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Korena Keys, founder and CEO of KeyMedia Solutions and author of the book Welfare to CEO. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.